This lecture is on the EPA's Green Chill program. And there have been a lot of moving pieces. And so I'm not going to worry about some of the changes with the federal government in terms of environmental policies, environmental protections. A lot of the Green Chill shutdown was overlooked. A lot of EPA programs didn't receive much attention. They kind of were off the radar between 2016 and 2020, early 2021, and starting again in early 21, certain things started to ramp up again. So there will be some changes, I'm sure, with each presidential administration. And I'm curious to see where things will move forward with the program coming up. So let's start with the Green Chill website. And here's the Green Chill Partnership Program with a map. You could go through the map and see where some of the different Green Chill participants are, partners are throughout the country. And there's a lot of information here. You can poke around looking at resources available to people in the partner program or companies in the partner program, resources and reports, things of that sort. And I'm just curious here, hadn't looked. There is a 2018 progress report, okay? And that's curious because that was not up there a year ago. So in 2020, this is now 2021. So even though the report was done, getting the report up had, maybe it was hidden, I'm not sure, but I had looked for it last year and could not find it. Didn't look that hard. But anyway, there's a progress report. I will post this online. It doesn't have a lot of detail, but it certainly has some updates since the 2011 report that was last updated. Let me just go here and hit download. And no, I'm not going to hit download because I don't have time to do that while we're going. So, okay, let's go back to the Green Chill page. There is a PowerPoint, which I will be showing you shortly. This file here. There's also a second PowerPoint, which I'm not going to go over both of them. There is some additional information, some overlap, but I gave you two versions. And there's also these Green Chill calculators. And so I want you to look at these calculators. They open up in Microsoft Excel or compatible programs, and they can give you lots and lots of detail. You can't see it probably on the screen in this video, but you certainly can open them and zoom in to look at some of the detail. So it's estimating leaks, it's estimating electricity consumption. It has basic data lists that were being used for the calculations. So if you have some data that you believe is more current, more accurate, more appropriate for your system, you can update the data that is utilized in some of these calculations. But this is a way for companies to look at their refrigeration systems and determine how they are performing in terms of the leakage and energy consumption. Now, keep in mind, this is all about the point of sale type of refrigeration systems that you would have at a grocery store. So the participants in this program, it's about the grocery stores, companies that use these green refrigerants that are not anhydrous ammonia in the commercial facilities. So when you have the public coming to your facility in large numbers, like a grocery store, using those kinds of refrigerated units, you would use a different type of refrigeration system than in a giant warehouse or produce cooling facility. So we're looking at those. The other calculator, oops. The other calculator is looking at some financial information, cost to replace leaked refrigerants, sales and profit information. So you can look at item to be sold, the number of units, the sales price, the profit margin, and you can look at how your refrigeration system impacts your financial profitability for the company. And again, you've got to update the data. So there's the refrigerant types. Actually, there is no additional data. So you have to put in your own unit prices and things of that. Your profit margins can be calculated based on your own data that you plug into these calculators. And they're very handy tools for companies that want to get involved in the program. They want to be more energy efficient, more environmentally friendly, and find ways to do that while also maintaining profitability. So that's it for the calculators. And let me just make sure, does this one still work? Resources, yeah, that link still works. So let's jump into the PowerPoint. So the EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency. And the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, it exists because of a law also called the EPA, the Environmental Protection Act. And that was signed, I forget the exact year, probably 1971, roughly. And so a lot of things have occurred since the EPA was established to try to develop and implement programs and partnerships to improve the environmental protection overall through energy reduction and through chemical use changes that either reduce chemical use or use alternative chemicals that are not as harmful to the environment. So the agenda, the EPA and the supermarket industry have this partnership. And again, this is a little bit on the outdated side. The last time I actually was able to get any new information was about 2015. There's some new information, there's some details, but new information instead in terms of the actual partnerships. This is the first time I've gone to their website in quite a few years that the site's been updated, which is rather unfortunate. But don't worry about the specific numbers. That's not what matters here. I'm not going to quiz you or test you on the specific numbers. You can always go and look at the 2018 report. You can always go onto the Green Chill website to see what is most currently posted. Certainly we'll talk a little bit about consumers and the environment as well. So upcoming regulatory initiatives, the Montreal Protocol is a treaty to reduce production of ozone depleting substances such as CFCs and HCFCs. These are compounds, these fluorocarbon compounds are very damaging to the ozone layer. They get up into the ozone layer and they act as a trigger for the ozone to react with these substances, and the ozone layer is depleted, exposing everybody else, all of the environment and humans included, to higher levels of radiation from the sun. And so there's been a huge amount of politics about this. The initial milestone was a phase out of these fluorocarbon-based refrigerants by 2010. And there's been various issues of meeting all of the goals. Essentially, the main goal is restoring the ozone layer, which has shown some healing over the years of this and other initiatives to help the ozone. But essentially, it is ultraviolet radiation that is the one we talk about the most. It causes cancer in higher amounts, sunburns, and all kinds of DNA damage that can be done by ultraviolet radiation. But it's not the only radiation that is being reduced by the ozone layer. 6.3 million US skin cancer deaths would be prevented by the year 2165, estimated by this effort. So if you look here, this is the phase out schedule. You can see a significant reduction phased out by 2010. Again, don't worry about these numbers here, but essentially in the range where we are now, 2020 to 2030, completely phasing out the fluorocarbon materials, the HCFC materials. And I can't tell you exactly where we are on this path because it's been such a politically tumultuous period, and the pandemic and everything else that has changed what's going on. And so I was not able to find an exact map like this. We certainly have made substantial progress, but I think we're behind. I think there still is some hope that we can have 100% reduction by 2030. Again, don't worry about the details of the dates because, again, these have largely been a moving target with minor adjustments, pushing things back, or for several years completely ignoring them. So if we look at the targets overlaid onto the actual usage, and then projected usage, you can see how we're doing the targets in a step down fashion, but the actual reductions are more of a gradual linear type slope. Again, don't worry about the numbers. In 2015, the hydrochlorofluorocarbon 22 in particular needs will exceed the 2015 cap by more than 10,000 metric tons. Recovery and reuse needed to meet demand. So we need to look at how are we going to meet the needs. We're trying to phase things out, but we can't eliminate all the refrigerators overnight. We've got to keep things running very efficiently that are already running and find ways to reclaim, recapture, and recycle the refrigerants that are currently in use. So here's some of the bottom lines, the things that I really want you to be aware of in this program. What are the supermarkets being asked to do? Improve their service practices. So when they do repairs, they don't let gases release. They don't let the refrigerants leak. They do proper servicing practices that will allow recovery of that material, recycling and reclamation of that material, so it's not going into the environment. Fixing leaks in your system, which a lot of supermarkets, it's amazing how much leakage they have, and where economical, where you can replace equipment. Replace equipment with newer refrigeration units that don't need HCFC refrigerants. They can use some alternative refrigerants that are more environmentally friendly. So businesses in the partnership have 3 options. Number 1, convert existing systems to alternative refrigerants. And so that takes some time and money. You've got to decide, is it worth it? Can you fix your unit, make your pumps and your fittings and everything compatible with one of these new refrigerants? If so, how old is your unit? Is it going to make sense? Buy a whole new system that uses alternative refrigerants. So just say, you know what, that one's old, that one's tired. It doesn't make sense to put a bunch of money into updating it to a new refrigerant. We're just going to buy a new one and continue operating the existing system. You still can do things on the existing system by improving service procedures, by reducing leaks, maintaining the system properly, replacing seals and all of the things you should be doing so that the system is contained. The problem isn't with refrigerators that are using the old systems and the old refrigerants. The problem is when they leak or when you repair them and you let the refrigerants escape during the repair process. So establish a plan to replace repairing leaking equipment, recover and reuse refrigerant, begin to transition to alternative refrigerants. Many businesses have started to switch. Consider the amount of time needed to convert. So I know a lot of places have converted. I know in Salinas, they had one Walmart back when, and they were on the old system of older refrigerants when they closed down the North Davis Walmart temporarily. They built the new Walmart off of North Main in the Hardin Ranch area, and completely new, high-tech and modern alternative refrigerants were being used. Then as soon as they got the new Walmart up and going, they shut down the old Walmart, revamped it, and it also is up and going. So they're just one example of a company that has made the transition to alternative refrigerants, but I think a lot of our Salinas grocery stores have actually done so. Upcoming regulatory initiatives, this is already in place, leak repair rule. I don't know if it was phased out with the previous administration. I don't know if any rules were turned on their heads during the 2016-2020 presidential administration. A lot of things were, but whether it impacted Green Chill, I don't know, and I really don't want to know, to be honest. So bottom line, improving or reducing leak rates is what was really important. And so that was being phased in during the beginning of the Green Chill, and the regulations were just getting tighter, trying to push companies to use these alternative refrigerants. Participation in Green Chill is voluntary. There is no membership fee. It's a non-regulatory process, meaning you're not putting any new regulations on you. Everybody in Greenchill is voluntarily participating to help with their marketing, to help improve their environmental presence, to show their customers they're doing the right things. But you're not required to do anything. Certainly gives you a friendly face to the EPA. You're one of the good guys, and they're less likely to be looking for ways to fine you because of violations, because you clearly are doing things to try to improve your operations. Boosting your bottom line, and that's really one of the goals they try to promote here. The concept is you kind of make more money in the long run if you're using better maintained, more modern refrigeration systems. Why a voluntary partnership is important? For the focus is on cooperation and mutual advantage of business and the environment. If it works, there's no need for regulation, and that's one big. If enough of the volunteers do all of this, and there's enough motivation and enough pressure on the industry to modernize with low impact refrigerants, then the EPA is less likely to come in with harsh rules that are going to be more challenging and less time to deal with for companies. More flexibility, lower cost for businesses, lower cost for government. If you're doing things in a voluntary partnership, you generally have a different time frame. So why not start now rather than waiting for the EPA to come in and say, you have to do it, and you have to do it, and you've got 2 years, period, or whatever. Right now, we've got this long phase in, we've got the ability to show that we're moving in the right direction, we're meeting our goals without imposing regulations. Good way to address problems that are difficult to regulate and or difficult to enforce, which this is difficult to regulate and difficult to enforce, but it still does have some teeth if you are violating air quality laws in your business. HCFC, or the hydrochlorofluorocarbon 22, is the primary refrigerant. Bad for the ozone layer, bad for the global warming potential. DX systems are the dominant technology used. Large refrigerator or refrigerant charges. So the average supermarket has 4,000 pounds of refrigerant in these. High leak rates average 20 to 25%, or about 1,000 pounds of refrigerant emitted per supermarket per year. Holy crap. This is huge. Think of how many supermarkets are just in Monterey County, and now spread that to the entire United States. And so all the ones still on the HCFC 22, this is a huge additional issue with ozone layer depletion and global warming potential gases. So Greenchill is an EPA cooperative alliance with the supermarket industry, promotes adoption of advanced refrigeration technology, strategies, and practices, basically doing things the way you should be doing them. Reduces charges, meaning the amount of refrigerant per refrigerator unit, emissions of ozone depleting substances, helps protect the ozone layer and protect against global warming. So you don't have to worry about the numbers here, but you certainly can see some of the partners at this time. I know there are more than that. Whole Foods is a biggie, no surprise. They're very environmentally friendly, and they use that in their marketing a lot. There are many more than this, but these are the biggies at that time. So What are the priorities? Getting rid of the DX type of refrigerator systems and moving to modern ones, shifting from the hydrochlorofluorocarbon HCFC 22 to some substitute refrigerants, promoting reduced refrigerant charges and promoting equipment leak tightness, not only at production, at installation and regular preventive maintenance in the supermarket. A lot of people think, oh yeah, it's just about the supermarket. Well, you are producing these things. You've got to look at the manufacturers. How are their practices doing good or bad things in terms of leaks? And then you install these systems. What are the installers doing? You can have huge amounts of leakage during the manufacturing and installation. Why are we looking at these advanced technologies for refrigeration? Well, the Montreal Protocol is looking at ozone layer recovery. The substitute refrigerants are ozone safe, but they still are greenhouse gases. It's not perfect. Leaking 1,000 pounds of greenhouse gas instead of 1,000 pounds of ozone depleting gas is substituting one environmental disaster for another. So you need to be looking at both, and you need to be not just looking at the refrigerants and what their risks are, but not letting them leak. So what are the benefits of joining GreenChill? Benchmarking to evaluate your progress, recognition for actions beyond regulatory requirements. So you're doing more than required by the law. Oh, and as far as benchmarking, that's getting data. You're getting data. Where are we today? Now, where are we, 6 months later? Where are we at 6 months after that? You can benchmark or create these data sets to monitor your progress. That's the benchmark. Building brand equity, like Whole Foods. They're all about natural, no GMOs, and environmentally safe. So Whole Foods can certainly capitalize on something like this. But even the companies that maybe don't have that kind of image, like a Walmart, they still want to push an image to the consumer that they are doing things for the environment. Tools to attain corporate environmental stewardship and sustainability goals. So maybe you have something that you're trying to do in terms of ISO 14001, or you've got some other goals based on some other reason. And so now you've got GreenChill as part of your environmental plan. It's one piece of the whole puzzle. Prepare for HCFC phase out, which is happening. Access to the latest information and state-of-the-art refrigeration technologies, networking and information sharing among partners. So there's a lot of reasons that it is beneficial to be in one of these partnerships. Don't worry about the programs. These are old retrofits. Most widespread strategy to prepare for the phase out. You're retrofitting old systems with the newer technology, newer refrigerants. That's going to be changing. I mean, you can't, I don't know where we are at this point in terms of what's the most common today, but certainly in the initial program, people were fixing up and updating their old refrigerants. At some point, you got to throw the old stuff out. They're not going to be making and selling the old DX systems. You're going to have to be updating to newer systems. Best practices guidelines describes and explains alternatives to conventional DX systems. So this is a set of documents that you can look through, the best practices to be guides for supermarkets to use. And so they have information explaining what are these alternatives to our typical DX systems. Factors to consider when selecting an advanced refrigeration option, because there's multiple options. Best practices to reduce refrigerant charge. Best practices for leak tightness, service and maintenance best practices, and case studies of companies that have successfully implemented all of these improvements through the Green Chill program. Nothing new there. Consumers in the environment. In the short term, consumers tend to be price conscious. They want to pay less. That is generally the number one goal. But even though they want to pay less, consumers also want to feel good about shopping at your store. So they call this moral permission. So why do people go to certain stores? If they see the Green Chill label on the floor embedded in the tiles, people feel good. Oh, wow, this company's doing something for the environment. And it does psychologically have an impact. Long-term effects, brand equity. So you can be a company that has that brand in people's minds that our stores care about the environment. Position yourself for the future so you can differentiate yourself from your competitors. We are a company that is doing more than the law requires. We are doing things for the environment. If your environmental activities aren't publicized, consumers assume you aren't doing anything. So you have to find ways to do it. I don't know if you've ever seen a Green Chill logo in the floor. I can't remember where I've seen it around here, but I've seen it. Waste costs money. What's good for the environment is good for your bottom line. If you've got leaking and you're recharging refrigerants, that's not saving you money. Poor maintenance is hugely expensive. So some numbers, not going to care if they're still valid, but that is the Green Chill presentation.